All right, welcome to Edge Radio Australia. My name is Travis Code, and we're here today for the Freedom Friday. We have Dan Worthington all the way from America on my right, and down below me, we've got Derek Whitaker all the way in Australia, and obviously I'm in, as the name says, Panama right there. So we're really doing a worldwide show today, which is awesome because some of the topics we're talking about today are actually covering some issues that are actually going to affect people from all around the world. So what I'm going to do, I think we should really get into it. Off air, we were actually talking about the good old Jeffrey Epstein files, and Dan was dropping a few hit bombs for us. So the reason we were talking about this one, during the week, Vice President Vance actually had an interview with Fox News, and it didn't quite go so well when he was blaming Biden for sitting on his hands and not doing anything for it. So for the update on this one, I'm going to throw it across to Dan because there's a lot more into it, and you're also American. It's happening in your neighborhood. So let's get into it. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. Vice President Vance was right because the Biden administration did nothing about the Epstein files and did nothing to enlighten us at all. What Trump's been trying to do. Here's the problem with the Trump administration. They have an ongoing investigation by the FBI and the DOJ about Epstein, and Congress is getting involved in subpoenaing the Clintons and both Hillary and Bill, and 6 others that are involved that they know were in the Epstein files, and so there is disclosure being made. The whole issue and the problem with Epstein is it was involved in the covert operations, intelligence operations between many of the world's covert intelligence agencies, and Epstein was their toy boy, and so that's the problem. You had Mossad, you had the CIA, you had, I imagine, everyone else, and the only one that has their shorts cut down over their knees right now is Prince Andrew because he got sued individually by one of the girls. But there are so many other perverts that were involved in that. Now, interesting, guess who was managing the investigation of Epstein in the 2000s?
No idea. I you were asking this question off air, and I said, no, let's do this one on air. So I'm really interested to know.
It was Mueller.
Hey, wasn't he the one that did the Russian coercion hoax?
Yes, that's my point. It was Mueller that was doing, and of course, now Mueller was practically incoherent during the Russian investigation, as we know. But Mueller is the one that gave, worked with the DOJ then to give Epstein the sweetheart deal that he got during, and so he basically slapped his hands, didn't do any prison time, and we're talking about one of the worst extortionists in history of humankind. I think the reason that happened is because there's so many politicians, mostly on the left, but some on the right, that were involved in these behaviors, and it's just. But there's nothing. See, in the international order of things with the Illuminati and others, their goal is to create perversion among the world leaders and among the elite and that kind of thing, destroy morality, destroy any notion of faith in God and Jesus Christ and those kinds of things. And so the Epstein and these kinds of operations are a tool to do that, because then they can own you and control you. And that's kind of the name of the game with these people. Now, Trump turns over the apple cart. I don't know if he's on purpose or sort of accidentally, because in his first term, he was not all that aware of everything that was going on, right? But he took on the CIA and the other national intelligence agencies, and they promised they would get him back. And this is why we saw the Russiagate and all the other BS that happened during the Trump administration, where he was allegedly threatened and impeached 3 times, and it was all just fake. And as we all know now, I mean, but it was the CIA was behind it, the FBI was behind it, Comey and those others, these clowns, shit. I mean, Shift, and Nancy Pelosi was behind January 6th. I mean, he was so easy to frame because he was not as experienced in the political and the political elements. A lot wiser now, having experienced all these lawsuits and everything else in this politicization of the Justice Department, and now the left is coming back to rue the day that they politicized, because now they're going to be subject to it, right? Turnabout's fair play. But anyway, the Epstein, I think we're yet to see disclosure with Epstein, but there might be some tempering because of the kinds of information that is contained in those files that could affect national security, because the CIA and the other intelligence agencies has their dirty little fingers all over it.
Okay, so the question that I'm really, really interested in this, because obviously Mueller, and you named a few other people there, Schmidt and a few others, high-level people within the Democrats. Nancy Pelosi has a very, very large financial impact, especially in the stock market. Apparently, somehow she manages to trade 54% better than Warren Buffett, who's arguably the best trader to ever exist. Derek, I'm going to throw this one to you. Let's say this does come out and Mueller actually gets caught up in all of this, and a lot of other high-end US government officials in the financial side of things. Is it likely to cause any impact on the financial side of things as well?
I guess it depends on who's involved. I think there's separation in terms of legally, entities versus individuals. And I think that's what you've got to realize. So if it can be proven that entities are involved as opposed to individuals, then yeah, you might see some bigger waves move through the markets, depending on how big that company or entity is. So that's where it's going to be. Am I expecting disruption in the markets? Absolutely. I'm expecting a lot of chaos to come. When? That's the hard thing to call. But yeah, in terms of how that is related, I think it really depends on, in terms of responsibility. Is it an entity or is it an individual?
Okay. The other one that I'm very, very curious about. So there's a lot of people, obviously everyone knows you've had the Russian hoax, you've got a few other things that are going on where they're constantly trying to attack Donald Trump, especially through January 6th, the pardons that he's already released when he first got into power. If this Epstein file does come out and they're actually able to pin crimes against high-end government officials, and like the first one that comes to mind is the head of the Reserve Bank of America. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But if he is found to be actually a part of this list, and because there's an active conspiracy against Donald Trump at the moment, at what point, what sort of fallout is going to happen if these people are actually found to be a part of this Epstein files? Like they're actively crooked, corrupt, and been actively working against Donald Trump in these situations. So I'm going to throw this one to Dan, because you are also a lawyer in the past. How far reaching is this going to actually hurt within the US market, and could it actually have an international impact as well?
Well, I think it depends on what they do about it, right? And I think this is why they've been careful. It is because of the potential implications it could have on the government and the faith in our institutions. Because as Banjomi, the assistant director of the FBI said, this stuff is so rotten and it reeks and it goes so deep, this corruption, that Americans would be shocked to know. And it's even deeper than that when you consider everything else that is in the top secret files of the federal government and the side deals that they've made in the past with, whomever. And so it's we're gonna. I think in the next year or two, we're going to see some huge revelations about what's actually going on, and it's going to shock all of us. We know that the game plan for the Democrats has always been the same. The way that deny, double down, deny, double down. And they always try to throw the same stuff back at the Republicans as they're guilty, actually really guilty with. But then there's the IMF and the World Bank and the other entities that and the folks that are Davos and others, these international entities that are trying to control all this stuff, and the bond market and all that, with Euroclear and Deutsche Bank and others, and the corruption that goes so deep, and their ability to just print money indiscriminately, right? They complain about the U.S. They're more guilty. They're more guilty than the U.S. Fed. I see the Federal Reserve losing power if Trump has his way, because why should the U.S. borrow money from the very entity that charges them these crazy interest rates when it's their money? They end up borrowing their own money. It's really crazy the way this thing is set up, and it's impoverishing the American people.
Okay.
Well, I think that can I just comment on what Dan just said? I think, Dan, the Genius Act is really a shift of power. I think people have totally underestimated the power of the Genius Act, because it does three things. One, it allows crypto has to now be legalized. Okay, it's officially recognized, and the Federal Reserve is not producing that. Number two, it's saying that stablecoins have to be backed by something. We haven't had that since 1971, since we depegged from gold, in terms of the US dollar. And number three, what's powerful about this is now tech companies, crypto companies can issue digital currency, which has always been a traditional role of the Federal Reserve. This is huge. People are totally underestimating how big this piece of legislation actually is for the United States and the world, with the US being the largest economy. I think there's that. And then getting back to your other point, Travis, I think in terms of Epstein, what will really have ramifications, I think, is to the Commonwealth. How deep did Epstein go with the royals? That's what I think is the big question here. Because if it is found that, there have been headlines that I've observed, even happening in England, that saying that Epstein was invited to a royal box while the Queen was there at some point. How deep does this go? These kind of reports, because that has implications for all the nations associated with the Commonwealth.
Yeah, the other one, I've actually seen photos of the Queen with Prince Philip, her husband, out this little like timber hut, and then it's the same hut that is actually on Epstein's island. So you can put two and two together. You know that the royal family has been there multiple times. So I'm really, really curious to see how far this will go. My take on it, I actually support. I don't think Pam Bondi should have said, "Oh, we're going to release an entire list." I think they should have kept that under wraps. I agree with Bam. I think it's going to be more disgusting than people realize. I think it's going to have very, very far-reaching. Like, just think about it this way: the Ellen DeGeneres show actually has their backdrop is Epstein Island. So you can see how far his reach has been. I think this is going to be massive, massive news. I think there's going to be massive turmoil over it, and it's actually going to degrade the trust in a lot of governments, not just the US government and the British government, but I also think a lot of key figures in other Commonwealth states are going to be in a lot of trouble. So, talking of international negotiations, I do want to bring over to a new piece of something that's come up with Trump, and this is the one probably campaign promise that he wasn't able to actually maintain and keep, and that's ending the war in Ukraine. So one of the things I did hear, apparently Vladimir Putin is actually going to be making a trip to Alaska to talk peace talks, because his time is up for the tariffs and the secondary sanctions are going to come out on Russia. Derek, I'm going to throw this one to you. Let's say Trump does manage to pull this off and he does actually get a ceasefire to hold. I'm more interested because in Australia, they're always saying, oh, because of the war in Russia, our fuel prices have gone through the roof. Do you think a ceasefire in Ukraine is actually going to have any economic calming down of the markets or the fuel prices or the cost of goods?
Well, I think there's been concerns as to who the Indians have been selling Russian oil to. That's what Trump's stood up recently and said. What's been happening is the Russians have been selling, India's been buying Russian oil and then on selling it, keep kind of doing the middleman, buying it real cheap and then selling it for higher prices. And that's what's got Trump going in relation to that. So yes, I think there's going to be implications in terms of energy. I think also in the crypto market, Russia is involved in cryptocurrency. It's had to, because since it's sanctions, how does it do cross-border payments with other nations to do trade? It's forced Russia's hand into that space. So it's going to be really interesting in terms of what can be negotiated there. I think the BRICS as a whole, when you've got Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and the partner nations that are there, I think they're all in that conglomeration for different reasons. For example, I think China's interest in BRICS is very different from India's interest in BRICS. What will be interesting is the ramifications for BRICS. If peace does happen, if America and Russia can come to some sort of arrangement, I don't think Zelensky is going to like it. They're already talking about moving the borders in terms of what Russia obtains. Zelensky, he is in a very difficult position. He basically needs this war to survive, I think, in terms of individually. I don't think he can last with the end of this war. I think you'll see his exit very, very quickly once that happens. And so I think he has been trying to, I suspect he's been trying to continue this conflict as long as he can, because what's he going to do after this? What can he do? Are his own people going to be happy about him when they are forcing, recruitment of their Ukrainian boys to the front line?
A lot of them at gunpoint as well, don't forget. A lot of those kids were actually grabbed off the street at gunpoint and told to come to the front line. So he's in a precarious position. So the other one is with that one, if he does pull this off, because I know the Democrats have been hounding him nonstop over not being able to settle this one within the 24 hours that he said. And I'm going to throw this one across to Dan. Do you think there'll be much political fallout on the Democrats after this?
Yes. See, they just have nothing. There's nothing left for them to hang on to, right? They're grasping at straws. They're trying to demonize and using their media buddies to try to demonize every issue they possibly can. I've been reading The Atlantic and other articles, and it's all just bullshit. It's not true. And it's just it's Democratic spin, more of the same. So we can expect that from them. I think Putin has used the war to try to weaken Trump in the perception of the American people, but it really hasn't worked. It sort of backfired on him. Zelensky's gone no matter what happens, and I think the deadline for Russia really is a deadline for Zelensky too, because I think Trump is going to be setting the terms for this ceasefire. Russia's going to get pretty much what it wants to get, and which was agreed in 2014 anyway. And there will be. I mean, this whole war could have been avoided. The millions of people who have died at the hands of the Russian, the Ukrainian troops, through the efforts of the CIA and the Black Ops and everything else, and the Koreans and everybody else. This has been such a devastating joke on the American people. The billions that have been spent, it's been a waste. It's been an entire freaking waste, is what it's been. And so, I hope it comes to peace soon. It's going to create a huge power vacuum in Ukraine. If as long as Trump can step in and douse the back swell of that power vacuum, I think it'll be fine. The United States will end up, and everybody end up being more prosperous, right? That's Trump's argument to everybody. Why make war when we can make peace and create economic development around the world?
Well, the thing is, with Trump, he's already caused a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. There was the Republic of Congo and Uganda. There was the Azerbaijan and someone else had a 35-year war. There was Colombia and Thailand as well. He prevented that from fully escalating even further. And if he can manage to get this one across the line, I think it's like 5 or 6 peace treaties that he's actually organised around the world. I can't see him not getting a Nobel Peace Prize on this one. I can't see him being crowned as the most influential US president ever. But it dumbfounds me that the Democrats are still trying to label him as this massive womanizer, racist, and all the other things that he's doing. So what I'd like to do, and I didn't tell you guys this one because I wanted to spring it on you. I wanted to see what you guys' reactions were. We're going from a leader that's got no problem stepping forward and saying, right, we need to do something, and fighting tooth and nail to get everything achieved. So that, obviously, I'm talking about Trump here, versus the Democrats. So I don't know, have you guys been keeping up with what's going on in Texas at the moment? So they're talking about realigning the borders to better suit the Republicans, which is fair. They're legally allowed to do this. They've won the seats. They've got the majority. And so what happened is, I think they had something like 45% of the primary vote in the state, but they only picked up something like 30% of the seats. So the borders just don't match. All the borders have been changed to suit what they're doing. And if you look at a whole heap of other Democrat-held states, Louisiana, there's a whole heap of other of them, where the Republicans have won something like 40% of the votes, but they didn't even pick up a single seat. So what's happened? The Democrats said, "Oh, this is an attack on democracy. Trump's a bad, evil person. He's as bad as Hitler," and they're saying all these nasty things about him. And their way of fighting and preventing this, they've actually fled the country, fled the state into another state. So therefore, they can't vote on approving of this changing of the borders because they don't have the seats to stop him.
They've been arrested. They're going to get arrested too.
That was my next question. What do you think the fallout's going to be? And do you think the Democrats actually is this a method for them to actually build faith in the Democratic faithful to say, you know what, our party's a party of fighters, we're going to do the right thing? Or is this just putting another nail in their own coffin?
This is chicken shit. We all know that. And, they're cowards. Rather than stand up and do their constitutional duty, they decide to run like cowards. And then the other guy that's getting in trouble is Beto O'Rourke, because he's funding all this crap with his family's money. And so, all that's going to come back to blood the nose of the Democrats. It's not going to work for them. I mean, look what's happening in California. The governor there is threatening to try to do the same thing to the Republicans in his state. And but Democrats have been playing with their jerry-rigged borders, and the Republicans have since the beginning of time. So there's nothing new about this. It depends on who's in power, who gets to set the rules, right? And so the Democrats know that, and so now they're just trying to manipulate things to avoid the obvious, and it's going to happen. So why mess with this? It's not creating any positive advantage for them.
Yep. All right. So Derek, with the midterms coming up, from memory, I think you're originally from California. Do you really think the people on the left side of policy, or even the centrists, do you even think any of these people who are like, I might vote the Republicans, I might vote the Democrats, do you think this is actually going to help any of them decide which way they're going to go? Or is it just us make people go, you know what, I don't care, I'm sick of this shit, I'm not going to vote anymore?
Well, I think it could go both ways. I think the diehard Democrat will vote Democrat, but I think those who are disgusted with the Democrats but don't like Trump will probably just abstain. That's what I think we saw in the last election. I would not be surprised if that continues. But I think there's some who are starting to see the real truth coming out, and they're probably going to be flip from the blue to the red. So I think you're going to get more of that. I think the bigger issue here too is how many illegals have been recruited to vote illegally in those elections, and that big drain, that's all being reviewed right now. And when it comes out as to how many non-US citizens were actually engaged in US elections, I think that could turn things around considerably. Because I mean, who were they going to vote for those who are allowing them in illegally under the Democrat power? They would normally vote for the blue. So I think that's going to make a major influence. I think that's why the Trump administration has got to clean out the house very, very quickly before that time comes.
I'm actually really glad you did bring up that the immigration issue, because we were also talking about this off air before we came in. So another big piece of news that came through recently as well, and I'm going to throw it to you in a minute, Dan. So what happened is, obviously, as per the name on my thing here, I am actually in Panama at the moment. I'm setting up some residencies and a few other things over here. Our lawyer here actually gave us warning not to go to the Colombian-Panama border, because what's happened, apparently a couple of days ago, there was an agreement between the Panama government and the US Border Patrol, and obviously the Trump government. So the US Border Patrol are apparently coming down and actually trying to block immigration, like illegal immigration, from Colombia, but a lot of the other South American countries, from actually coming up through the land bridge, which is Panama, and into like Mexico and America through the southern border. So we're being told under no circumstances are we to leave Panama City at the moment. So Dan, do you think this is actually going to help, considering how good of a job they've already doing on the south border? Do you think this is actually going to help, or is this just more to assist the South American countries to actually get control of their own borders as well?
Both.
Mhm.
You know, and the interesting thing we're seeing is the Trump administration telling Mexico, you don't get your act together, we're sending troops there to resolve this issue. We know the Mexican government has been in bed with the drug dealers for a long time. It's
Mhm.
part of their economic development for their nation is
Mhm.
using drugs and drug money, and you know, the Democrats do too. They get a lot of dark money from the drug lords and the sex traffickers and everyone else, because they're all part of the same ilk of type of people, right? And so, you know, Trump is saying, no, enough of this. We're not going to put up with this anymore. And yeah, you know, Mexico is a sovereign country, but if they're not going to put up, then they're going to be made to shut up. I think it would take the United States maybe 2 weeks to shut them down, a little longer to take out all the drug lords, because they have modern weapons and everything that have been provided to them by the Russians and the Chinese. But it's got to be stopped. It's got to be stopped now, because if it won't be stopped now, it won't be stopped.
So obviously Trump's only got, I think, 2.5 years left over. If he can't really stomp out this problem, do you think the new Republican leader, whoever that's going to be, my money is on JD Vance, do you think he's going to have the finesse and the courage to go as hard as Donald Trump has gone for it to make sure it doesn't change?
Maybe. It depends on how committed he is to the you know, the agenda, and it depends on how much power Republicans have in Congress, both in the Senate and the House, because that'll make a huge difference. At this point, the Democrats are just, you know, holding out. They're claiming that Trump is really a lame duck. He really isn't, in that his policies have been very, very persuasive and influential around the world, and have changed the dynamic of the world. We're seeing a change in the world order, essentially aligning with what Trump wants. Although the IMF and the world powers, the billionaires and others, are still holding out just to wait for their turn, hoping that Trump goes away and they can kill him, you know, one of the two. And we can get somebody in. They can get somebody in that they can buy or influence, because this is what they've done for the last 50 years in the United States.
I think one of the things that Trump has done really, really well, and just talking about his ability to bring not just the Republicans and to consolidate his position there, but also what he's done and the massive success that he's had with the former Democrats that he's brought into his Congress. So I'm talking RFK Jr., especially with what he's been doing about the vaccines, and also with Tulsi Gabbard, what she's been able to do with the Russian hoax. So these are things that people have been calling for, like, we need investigation into these things. We need the truth. We need to find out. And it's actually the Democratic people who are coming into the Republican Party who is actually bringing this all forward. So he's been really able to stabilize both the left and the right into this conducive movement that is just kicking goals left, right, and center. Again, I'm worried that once the Trump effect has run out, especially because we've got the midterms coming up shortly in America, I think they're going to actually for one of the first times ever in the midterms. Normally they go backwards a little bit. I think he's actually done go forwards, and that was actually reported on CBS News. So I'm worried that he's going to do really, really well in the midterm. Come the next election, there's going to be a bit of a clawback back towards the Democrats, and then the midterm after that. I think the Republicans will win the next election. He's just kicking too many goals. It'll be interesting to see what the fallout is after.
Well, it depends on if the Democrats can ever get an agenda that passes with the American people. Right now, they're the party of crazy, unreasonable crazy. And hating Trump is their only real mantra. People that hate Trump, they kind of go that way, but they know the Democrats don't have anything better. So that they've been siding with Trump over the Democrats because Democrats have been crazy in destroying America. And Trump, although you don't like him, you don't agree with him sometimes, he's doing stuff that's good for the nation. He's building the nation. And as a result, the rest of the world will benefit because the United States, when the United States is doing well, everybody pretty much does well too. Just the United States isn't going to continue to pay, the larceny that's been paid to other nations for the last, 20 years with respect to the tariffs and the prices and everything else. We're done. We're going to stand up for the American people, American jobs, and the democracy, Republican democracy, and freedom, and not kowtow to these lily-liver, lackluster politicians and communists that seem to be the politician de jour for the Democratic Party. No more.
So one thing that I'm also noticing that the Democrats are really failing with is the fact that they haven't got a single leader they can rally behind at the moment. So Derek, I know we're always harping on now about how great the Republicans is, how good of results they're getting, but I'd like your opinion. What do you think the Democrats need to do moving forward to actually put up a battle?
Clean house. They've got to clean house. They have got, you've got an issue here where the Americans are now awake and going, this is what's been actually going on, as opposed to the politics and what we see on mainstream media. They've got to come clean. If you don't and are still viewed as hiding things from the American public, it is going to damage you big time. So they've got to come clean, and they've got to clean house as to those who have done the wrong thing. That they'll have to get them out. I think for them to recover for the next election is a big ask. I mean, just from a marketing perspective, if you were just to take that, what do they stand for right now? Well, they're seen as the corrupt party right now that have been hiding all this stuff for so long. So you've got to become transparent. For them to recover from this, it would be incredible. And I don't think they can. They've also got, you see, what you've got too, Travis, is you've got a lot of the mainstream media that have been their bullhorn for so long. It's getting cleaned up as well. Like The View is coming to an end. That's been a propaganda machine for the Democrats, right? That show. You've got a lot of late night show hosts losing their shows now. The mainstream media's viewership is down to all-time lows. They've moved to YouTube, the viewers. Okay, so who's controlling the narrative? Well, Google's going to have its day in terms of what it's been hiding and this sort of stuff as well. That's all going to come out. And in this age of what we call the Great Awakening, people are now awake. They're doing this, or they aren't awake yet. They are waking up slowly but surely. And when they see that what has been really going on, how do you repair that?
So I've always said the great equalizer was always going to be the internet, because all you've got to do is a quick Google search, skip a couple of pages, and then you get all the non-filtered stuff. And you can actually, it doesn't take that long to actually get the information that you want, the unfiltered truth. So I think the Democrats have massively overestimated how important the mainstream media will be so probably the past 10 years, but also in the next, say, 20 years or so. You see a lot of TikToks where they're doing weights and trying to appear youthful to the younger generation. They just look like absolute idiots. So I find the young generation, as daft as they can be, they're not stupid. So, and I think a lot of them wake up. So, Dan, I'm going to throw it to you. Same question. Is there any hope for the Democrats, and who do you think can be a leader that can lead them out of the mess that they're currently in?
Well, I think they were sort of depending on the technology folks to come up with a way to save them with ChatGPT and artificial intelligence. I noticed even when I did the search for Trump's activities over the last couple of weeks, there was a tremendous left wing bias in the summary, and so that's going to continue to be an epidemic with the kinds of information the American people are fed, except by podcasters and others who can get to the bottom of the truth. There is a quote unquote conspiracy theory out there about AI and what it means for the future and the deadlines and all that, and how the federal government is going to fake this whole idea of a second coming and all this other stuff, and it's going to be a fake God, and they're going to make everybody tie into AI and tied to the digital currency and all the other. I don't know what to say about all that, but the truth is that we need to stay free. We need to stay ever vigilant and try to understand the best we can, because there's always all sorts of edges and directions and angles that all this stuff is coming from, right? And I think if you follow the Council on Foreign Relations website, see what they're saying, follow what some of the other folks are saying, find out what the biases are, so you really can understand where everybody's coming from and the angle they're coming from. The Russians have one agenda. The Chinese really have another agenda. The Europeans have another agenda. The billionaires have another agenda. Trump has another agenda, and it's trying to coalesce all these forces into some sort of workable solution. And this is the reason. I mean, some people actually benefit from all this war and havoc. This is why we have it. It's why Biden was so supportive of it. The CIA was behind it. And so, it's time for the world to choose peace over war. It doesn't mean that we have to give up our nuclear weapons and stop pointing them at each other, because they provide a substantial deterrence for stupid people doing stupid things. But it does mean that we should be having policies that are effective trade policies that build our economies and create a bigger piece of pie for the world, because that's the solution to solving the problems of poverty, employment, and other things. Is it's the economy, stupid, right? And that's exactly what it is worldwide. The economy is stupid.
So, do you think the Democrats can actually fix the mess they are in?
No, because they're stupid. I mean, they don't have any solutions that solve the fundamental problems that Americans are facing. They're part of the problem. They are the ones that caused most of this crap, and it was done deliberately with foresight. And the American people see it, and they're angry because this is not what we signed up for. Now you do have some mainstream Democrats who are so indoctrinated, so blind, so stupid, so angry that they're not willing to admit this. They haven't learned anything from the election.
They think that we are their plebs to control. Then they keep forgetting that we actually put them into that position.
Well, and they've tried to control the blacks all this time with their lies, and the minorities and everything else. And the minorities and the blacks are waking up and becoming aware of the lies as well. And they're not going to stand for it. So as long as there is a party who stands up for those things which are most important, freedom and opportunity and all the things that are driving forces to make things better, at the goal of improving things, I think that's the party they're going to vote with, if they're smart enough to understand what they're doing.
Beautiful. So it's coming up for time. So just one shameless quick plug for Edge Radio here. Just remember, if you do want to support the station, we do have different subscription levels. So we've got the free account. That just means you get newsletter every now and then to give you an update what's going on. We do have the $2 a month. I think it's called Scrooge McDuck package from memory. And then we've also got the Hey Big Spender, which is $10 a month. It just does help to, all this stuff, the equipment, the streaming services and all that sort of stuff. It does actually cost quite a bit of money. So please, if you do have the time, head over to edgeradioaustralia.com and click on the subscriber button and you'll be able to join up there. Other than that, gentlemen, Derek, thank you very much for coming on today. Dan, always a pleasure. Great listening to your words of wisdom and years of advice and experience. Love having you on the show again. Thanks very much for coming in.
God bless America and God bless Australia.
See you guys next week.
Thank you.